I understand that the police made a grave mistake. And the unfortunate part about it all is, when do we hold police accountable? When do police officers actually say, our bad, our mistake, and instead of doing that, create the criminal element of every time they'll go after an alleged suspect? Here's the thing that they painted. They painted that this young man was a criminal. And to me, when you look at it, as I just visited Stephon Clark's demise in the backyard of his grandparents' house, the young man had no opportunity, no chance. You had a helicopter that was moved by the sheriff, that was giving the instructions to the SAC PD that was on ground. They gave all bad information. So the miscommunication between both entities has kind of led to the death of Stephon Clark. So the idea of it one time, the thing that they alleged was a gun, was a toolbar, then it was a cell phone, and ultimately they try to play it that it was a gun. It led to his demise. So it's more of the same kind of business here in Sacramento. And what's happened afterwards is you've had the death of Brandon Smith, you had the death of Daryl Richards, as well as the death of Marshall Miles. So when we look at Sacramento in a whole, we haven't really heeded the words or of the people, or haven't looked at the end results of excessive force used by police.
I wanted to ask you about the police chief of Sacramento, Daniel Hahn. He's promised a separate internal investigation into the actions of the police officers. He's an African-American police chief. What has been his role, and do you have any hope that anything will be done, even at an administrative level, to hold these officers responsible?
Well, one of the officers that killed Stephon Clark was African-American. The idea of an African-American chief to be the hero of the community, it's nice in theory, but the reality is he's under a shield, and that shield is blue. So when we look at Han, we hope that he does the right thing, but in the letter of law for police, the letter of law protects the police for doing a heinous act like this. And the unfortunate part, the letter of the law hasn't changed since 1872. And when you think about 1872 and you think about the origin of police in 1704 as slave catchers, AKA the slave patrol, you got to really understand where we're at right now, right? In 1865, you know, this is when this African-American citizens were let out of slavery. So when you think about the idea of what the origin of the police are, and the idea that because of the shooting of Joseph Mann, the resignation of Summers, or should I say the fact that Summer resigned, allegedly, you have Chief Hahn, who comes in as a superstar because he used to be a part of this community. Again, a superstar coming in this community doesn't mean that he's going to clean up the culture of policing. And the culture of policing, not only in Sacramento, but throughout the country, is deemed to be corrupt. So when that idea of corruption and racism, it's going to be a hard piece for Daniel Hahn to come in and do the right thing. And the right thing only now is to fire the officers at this point. We're not going to get a criminal conviction, so fire the officers. So we wait patiently and not really worried about an investigation because we've been here for over a year. What more of an investigation are we going to have? I don't think that the city of Sacramento, as well as Stephon Clark's family, needs to go through the kind of pain to kind of hear again that Stephon Clark was this, Stephon Clark was that. Stephon Clark was a man. Stephon Clark was a black man, unarmed, who got murdered at his grandparents' house.
So what are you calling for right now, Barry?
We're calling for firing. Absolutely. These officers cannot be in the community of Sacramento. The firing of these officers need to happen immediately. And it's not only on Chief Hahn, it's also on our city management. City manager holds most of the power. The city manager, if he wanted to, he could actually say that the officers would have to go. But again, the letter of the law that kind of holds these officers in this way of protection, it makes it more difficult for them to kind of do the right thing. As a humanity standpoint, you would think these officers, whether it's a mistake or whether they did it on purpose, they did something that they can no longer be in a community policing the people in this community without the people in the community having distrust. And a whole lot of the things that these folks have been telling us for years and years is that we have to trust the police officers and we are community. The new thing is we are healing, but how can you heal without justice? Well, so these officers have to go immediately.
Barry Accius, I want to thank you for being with us, founder of the Voice of the Youth and Sacramento community activist.
Could I also say one more thing? We need to put AB 392. That is something, a bill that will change the dynamics of policing. It will hold police accountable for these heinous actions. AB 392. This is a bill that we are pushing to make sure that police officers are held accountable.